and welcome to Her Huddle, where we hear from the talismanic women in and around the NFL, gaining insight into how they smashed glass ceilings and changed this game that we all love. And we're hearing from a true trailblazer today. No matter what your definition is of that term, she fits it. So we had to get not one, but two special guests in studio as well. Our very own Phoebe Schechter, former Buffalo Bills tight end assistant coach. How are you doing, Phoebes?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Always good when I'm in your company, that's for sure. And alongside myself and Phoebe is a former NFL executive who won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years with the New England Patriots, but more importantly, has been a champion for diversity and inclusion in the NFL and has mentored many women, including Phoebe, along the way. Scott Pioli, welcome to Her Huddle.
Thank you. Great to be here. Great to be here with both of you, really.
We are so excited to have you with us, and I know you've helped Phoebe along the way, and you also helped our special guest today, so we had to get you in and on the sofa whilst you're in town as well. I'm going to hear lots from you guys later, but we really do have to get to today's guest because it's a really special one. She was the first woman to coach in the Super Bowl and also the first openly gay coach to do so when she was on the sideline for the San Francisco 49ers in Miami. She's also a former player and has worked in coaching roles for the Falcons and the Chiefs. She's the one and only Katie Sowers.
When I was coaching in the Super Bowl, it was one of those moments where I remember looking around during the national anthem and thinking about when I was younger, dreaming of being on a real football team with helmets that match. And here I was, at a Super Bowl. And lo and behold, I'd become the first woman to lose a Super Bowl. But, even with that out of the way, it was this idea of, one day it won't be a headline. One day it won't be weird to see a woman in the Super Bowl. And that's when I think we really know that we've been successful, is when that headline is no longer a big deal because it's just the norm.
How was it for you coping with the pressure of Super Bowl week and the media buzz that did surround you and follow you? And I imagine you were very much like, right, I'm here to do a job and trying to focus. And it's the biggest week of your career professionally as well.
Yeah, luckily we had 2 weeks to prepare. And I remember that first week was really to get all that media stuff out of the way. And, other than opening day or opening night when we had the ceremony, and I think that's when it really hit me just how big this is, because we all get so wrapped up in the things that we're doing. And obviously it being such a big game, it was just, we were going to work just like every other day. And that opening night, I remember, I was kind of standing off to the side, and all of a sudden I had all these reporters around me. And the magnitude of what this moment meant really, really struck me. And it was one of those surreal moments. I was glad that my niece was able to watch me, even though she really claims to hate football. But now someone like her can dream of playing or coaching or doing whatever it is that they love, regardless of their gender, their race, sexual orientation, anything like that.
Well, that's just it, I suppose, as well, though, it's the sort of double headline as well, because not only were you the first female coach, you were the first openly LGBTQ coach in the Super Bowl. I mean, when you've got those two sort of firsts following you, I mean, they haven't gone away, have they? And I know you don't tend to do as much and talk to the likes of me so much anymore, but what does it mean to you now when you look at the landscape of the league and you look at the likes of Kyle Nassib, who is now an openly gay athlete, and we've got 15 women coaching in the league this year? I mean, you may have been the first, but very much not the last, and that must feel really good.
It does. I always reflect back to when I was starting as an intern with the Falcons. And I remember, being at events like the Combine, and I would look around at all these other teams that were represented, and never did I see a woman in that building. And then I remember the next year that I attended, I maybe saw 1 or 2 women in there. And it was kind of like we'd see each other, we're like, hey, okay, I see you. Yeah. And then, the following year it doubled. And then the last year that I attended, there were women all over the place. And so to remember back to a time when I looked around and I was really like, there is no other person in this building that is a woman to it was just the norm. Everyone was going about their business like it was the norm. And to see that growth over that span of years was amazing. And all the women in the league right now, I love seeing, the growth that this game has done. We have a lot more to do, but we've come a long way.
What was it like for you when you first walked into the Atlanta Falcons facility as a training camp assistant, and then the 49ers as well, where you went from sort of that seasonal role to being given a full-time job? What was the sort of reception to you, very much as one of those trailblazing female coaches?
I think a lot of times organizations follow the lead of their leaders, and having Scott Pioli as my mentor, who is the assistant general manager of the Falcons, everyone saw the respect that he had, and he showed that respect and that need to treat everyone equally, and everyone kind of followed suit. And I'll still never forget, for my 30th birthday, I was in Atlanta, and Julio Jones surprised me with a birthday cake. And I was just this little coaching intern. I felt like, not a big deal. And he went out of his way to surprise me with a birthday cake that said, "Happy birthday, Katie." And to have a leader like that was a leader in the league as a player, to show the sign of respect for an intern who happened to be a woman, was pretty incredible.
When you went to the 49ers, I know Kyle Shanahan's obviously a huge fan of yours, just reading what he's said about you. In fact, he gave you a job as, clear signal that he very much appreciates what you bring to the table. What was it like going on that Super Bowl journey with him?
I feel blessed to have learned from, in my opinion, one of the best offensive minds in the game. I think that the way that he's learned the game from, his dad and from everyone he's been around his whole life has created this offensive mind that is able to be creative in this kind of old school world. And so to be able to say that my time was spent learning from the best, I feel extremely blessed to have had that opportunity. And, his coaching style might be a little different than mine, will be when I'm a head coach. But, every leader leads differently. And as long as they're true to who they are, and you're not trying to be something you're not, people buy into that. And you see, within my first 4 years, Kyle Shanahan was an offensive coordinator, then became a head coach. In my first 4 years in the league, I was in the Super Bowl twice, once as an intern in Atlanta, and then as a full-time assistant.
I mean, that's a remarkable track record. And you say that when I'm a head coach, I know you're with in the college sports system at the moment, but is the ambition to get back to the league and to climb that tree all the way to the top?
I would say, if you would have asked me, a few years ago, I probably would have said yes, but that was before, and a lot of people don't know this, I actually started coaching men by default. It was because I didn't realize that one day there'd be an opportunity that I could coach women in this game of football, and actually make a living off of it. And so, it was just kind of by default that I thought, well, I'm going to have to coach men. Well, I'll have to deal with this. And, I realized that men and women are way more similar than we'd ever think. They all have their insecurities. They all need to be coached a certain way. They all become the best version of themselves, based on how you lead and how you motivate. And I do want to be a head coach, but whether it's the NFL, that's yet to be determined.
That's so interesting. So, not given the choice, if someone was like, "Hey, do you want to be the head coach of an NFL team?" You'd be a crazy person to turn it down. But for you, is there as much, if not more, satisfaction from being around female athletes because you relate to them on that different level?
Yeah, there's something to, you can hear, these professional athletes complain about, how much money they make, 1 million compared to, 12 million, 13 million. And then, I get to the college setting where women are just kind of breaking into this game of football. And, flag football could potentially be in the Olympics in 2028. And to know that I could have an impact on opening a door for young girls who want to play football and never thought it was even an option for them. That's what really drives me.
That young women not knowing certain sports are an option for them is something I think a lot of us experienced perhaps, and it's so refreshing to see that that's no longer the case. I'm interested, you said when you were on the sideline for the Super Bowl and everyone's wearing matching helmets. Makes me wonder what your first forays into football were, if the matching helmets was such a part of it for you.
I think it came from the movie The Little Giants, if you've ever seen that movie with Icebox. So it's actually about a group of kids, and one of the star players on this little group of kids is a girl, and her name's Icebox, and she plays football with the boys. And I realized, man, she can fit in with those guys. She can play with those guys. Like, I even realized that I drink chocolate milk just like she does when I rewatched it. I mean, but in that movie, the Cowboys were kind of the bad guy team, but it was all of these little kids' dreams to get that jersey, to get that helmet, because that means they made it. And I guess there's kind of a parallel between where I'm at right now. And sometimes we think that it's that Cowboys team that's going to make us successful. And maybe at one point I thought it was the NFL, but then you realize, it was the Little Giants team all along, and maybe for me, it's women's football is just as much of a dream and just as important, if not even more, than the NFL.
So when did you discover football yourself and playing football? Because I know you had huge success playing women's football for the United States team, but when did you get into playing, and how was that experience for you?
I was little when I started playing football. I have journal entries from when I was in elementary school where I would just talk about how all I wanted to do was go home and play football with all the neighbor boys. And, you could even see in this journal where I transitioned to, well, I guess I can't play football, so I'll play basketball. And that's what my dad coached. My dad was a collegiate basketball coach. And so I just kind of thought for a while, I'm going to have to leave football over there. There's no college opportunities to get scholarships in football. So I really turned my sights on basketball. It wasn't until after college that I started playing women's tackle football and played for about 8 years, went, Team USA in 2013, won the gold medal. And that was an experience. It was my first time overseas, which I know it seems like I should have branched out a little earlier, but better late than never. But that was quite the experience to be around so many different countries on that world stage.
Who are the people that have, because we all need supporters, no matter what path we're doing and what we're looking to do in life, we need people that believe in us. Who have those people been for you, and just how critical have they been in those moments where you've maybe had some doubt?
There were three that come to mind from the 49ers team, actually. One is Coach Turner, who has now quote unquote retired, even though, I don't think that man will ever retire. But I remember, he was one of those guys that never would treat me differently, just in conversation, that whether he knew it or not, he was treating me just like everybody else. And I remember him telling me stories of him being one of the first African-American males in football coaching. And he told me stories where, a school told him that they're not ready to have that at their school. And I had a similar experience just years down the road where a team said, we're not ready to have a woman. And, so to kind of be able to relate in a sense to, being doubted because of your race, because of your gender, those were things that I was able to share with him, and he was able to tell me stories of his past that gave me a little bit more hope for the future. And then also another two where we called them the two Mikes: Mike McDaniel, who's now the head coach with the Dolphins, and then Mike LaFleur, who's with the Jets. And those two guys, they were a huge pull for me. They were like kind of a little cheering section in a sense when it came to believing in who I could be and what I could become. And having them and learning from them was critical to my success and making it the number of years that I did.
What's the biggest challenge you've overcome in your coaching career?
I think it's a mindset, honestly, is a challenge that I think no matter what job it is that we have, we all face. We all have a sense of imposter syndrome. When are they going to figure out that I'm not as good as they think I am? And regardless of if we know it or not, I think we tend to apply our own doubt. They think I'm going to mess up because I'm a woman. Well, part of that could be true, but another part is that fear of being that woman that messes up. And the more that we can just realize that when I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of coaches, they might all happen to be men, but we all have a different background. We all have different stories of what got us to where we are. And the more that I realize that me being a woman is just one of my differences, the more confidence I have, the more I can bring my true self to the table. So I think the hurdle is what society has set up as the problem, and it's your mindset to get over it.
What's your sort of coaching style and your coaching philosophy?
I would say I'm very, very much player-centered when it comes to how I lead people. I'm a big believer in kind of reading the room, and you can't be so blinded by your own objectives, your own goals, you have to realize that everything you do and the people around you, every single part of that makes success. And for me, it's not only teaching my players that, the score will take care of itself. And with that, I mean, you do the right things, you set the right goals, you have the right motivation. The score is just an outcome that happens because of everything that you've worked up to. And so that, along with this critical thinking idea that I think people miss out on a lot, that we're kind of missing this sense of being open to the world and open-minded. And so as a coach, we're not just coaching X's and O's, we're actually coaching life skills. And that's what I believe. And that's what I've learned. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
Oh, I mean, I definitely feel like I'd respond well to that if I was on your team. I mean, you wouldn't want me on your team, got no skills whatsoever, which is why I talk about sport. With all the sort of different hats you've worn in your career and the different labels you've been given as you come through, I'm really interested to know how you, Katie Sowers, define yourself now as a coach, as a human.
I would say that's a tough question, because my mind kind of flips to a bunch of different places. But I would say the main thing is I want to be a change maker and making the lives of the people that I'm around, making those lives better. And the more that I can do that, the more that's where I see my place in history, and whatever the future holds. Is I want to make sure that someone says my life was better because of that person.
That is a great mission statement, and something I think you're probably well on your way to doing already. Finally, there's so many more women in coaching now. We want to see more and more and more. What's your one piece of advice for young women who want to follow in your footsteps?
I would tell those women to have confidence in who you are and what you do, and don't spend so much energy looking at everyone else's highlight reel on social media and everything that everyone else is doing, because they are just putting up highlight reels. They're not putting up the doubts that they have in their head. And so regardless of the doubt that you have, make that fuel you to learn more, to don't just wait for someone to give you the information. Go find it. Be the best version of yourself, and nothing is impossible.
Sound advice, Katie. Thank you so much for joining us on Her Huddle.
Thank you for having me.
Honestly, I say this with all of these, could have spoken to Katie Sowers all day. An incredible person, coach, human. She's just got that something special, hasn't she, when it comes to existing?
She does, and it's funny, listening to her last words there, and she lives what she's saying and recommending. Go out and do it. If you don't know the answer, go find it. And that's part of who she is and what she is. And that's why I really believe that was a big part of her ascending to where she did so rapidly.
And Phoebe, she's a very intelligent woman, a very intelligent coach as well.
Yeah, massively. I mean, you can see just with her rapport with the players, with the coaches, she's always been someone that's been so eager to learn. And when she doesn't know, like Scott said, when she doesn't know or understand how to get somewhere, she'll work her butt off to get to that point and do that extra work, do the extra hours. And it's been just amazing to see how far she's come, and to see her happy and loving what she do means so much.
Yeah, it's really funny too, because in mentioning that, when she came to work for us as an intern, and then she became my intern, there were other people that were at the same level as her, and they would ask a lot of questions. And it's good to ask questions. However, Katie would ask a couple of questions, but then she would go find the information herself. Yeah. So she had that built into her. And it was one of the reasons why I really gravitated towards her, because she worked to find answers and to get answers rather than looking for an easier path or just being given something.
Because you actually met Katie not through football, and she mentioned you in there as being a great part of her life and a great mentor in her life, but it was sort of happenstance that actually brought you together.
Yeah, it was crazy. So back when I was the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs, she was actually coaching my daughter Mia's 5th grade basketball team. And she was, I think her job was, she was the athletic director for the city of Kansas City's, for their youth programs. And we got to talking one time after practice, and she had a really high interest in the game. And I thought, okay, she's just a really big fan. But then she told me that she was a quarterback for the Kansas City Titans, and her sister, Liz was the receiver. And I was like, wait, the Kansas City Titans? So I actually went to a game, but we cultivated this relationship way back. Again, my daughter was only in the 5th grade, and then we just became really close friends, and we stayed in touch. She became a dear family friend. And years later, it was about 6 years later, when I became the assistant general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, she really still wanted to coach, and she had been doing all the work to prepare. Yeah. She learned the game, she knew the game, she had been playing, she coached, she had done every role. And so it was an opportunity to get her in as an intern. And that internship turned into, she did a summer internship in coaching, and then I kind of stacked the deck and hired as my employer personnel. And she was fantastic. She was fantastic. And what that gave her, though, Hannah, was proximity to people that were going to be future decision makers. So when Kyle Shanahan gets the head job after that season, we went to the Super Bowl that season. After that season, Kyle gets the head job at the 49ers. He hires her instantly. And that's just part of this work, right? It's allowing people opportunities, giving them proximity to people of power who can make decisions. So, and that had a lot to do with it.
And it's something we've touched on before, isn't it, Phoebe? That you need these people that will back you, like Amy Trask with Al Davis. If you've got someone that's talented, you need someone that's willing to take that risk. And I find it really interesting the way she talks about coaching men almost by default. Like that's a problem.
She had to put up with us.
Yeah. But it's true, and it's something I know you work a lot now with the British American Football Foundation, captain of Team GB, and it's interesting as these opportunities are developing for female coaches in both gender sports. Yeah,
I mean, as Katie pointed out, there really were no opportunities to coach women back then. I mean, you could play in a complete amateur league and, play for your country where you're still having to pay to play. But the fact that she went through the NFL to end up, so she's now coaching flag football with her twin sister, Liz, at Ottawa University. I mean, she is so happy being able to, like she said, just help people achieve whatever their dreams are and really help them maximize whatever their goals are in their life. And she's just been so happy, and it's been beautiful to see.
I want to mention something. You just mentioned you have to pay to play. As a woman, you had to pay to play. It's the work that I do now with the International Player Pathway Program. As someone who's, again, had the entitlement my entire life of being someone who had the opportunity to play football, get a scholarship, and then just be in the boys' club forever. One of the most refreshing things in doing this work, and Phoebe said, when I first met Phoebe, she was having to pay to do everything. She was paying to play football. She paid to play here. You paid to coach over there. You were doing things. The amount of money that she had to invest, money, time, emotion, as crazy as it sounds, when you spend your life around it and you're around NFL players for 30 years and you see some of the unintentional entitlement that they have because it's just part of their life.
Yeah, it's what they know.
But it's so refreshing like when I met Phoebe, when I met Katie, it was so refreshing to have people that respected the game in a different way. They, it wasn't just respect, it was gratitude.
Yeah.
True and genuine gratitude to be around the game, which is what the game is really supposed to be about, not this sense of entitlement.
Phoebe, it's interesting as well, and we picked up on this. The first thing Katie said, first woman to lose a Super Bowl. She pointed out. And
That was so her.
Yeah, I got that very quickly. I was like, okay, I understand you as a person now. But we've seen, you know, so many women in the last Super Bowl. There were multiple women on the sideline. She has been that change maker that she aspired to be, hasn't she?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's, you know, no other way of saying it, we're kind of like a big sisterhood, you know, we're all connected.
Her Huddle, perhaps?
You know.
Very well done.
Exactly, nailed it. But it is that, you know, Coach Lowe and MJ being on the sideline with Tampa Bay, you know, Callie Brownson now. We've just seen the game grow and changing what the sidelines look like. And I know, kind of going back to Amy Trask and what she was saying, you know, it does still come down to a common denominator like Scott here, who's been able to bring people into that space who don't look like him. And we need someone like you know, standing on the shoulders of giants. And you've been brilliant for so many of us, Jennifer King as well, who's helped us to be able to achieve our dreams by just giving us that opportunity.
But why shouldn't we, right? To me,
Yeah.
that's what this all comes back to. When you stop and you think about it, all right, why shouldn't you have the opportunity?
Yeah.
Why shouldn't you have, I mean, what are we doing here? What
are we doing here?
No, I mean, like the fact that you have to be, it's you deserve it.
Well, and it's great to see that through the support and help of the likes of yourself, that people like Phoebe, that we will dive into in more detail in the upcoming episode, and Katie are absolutely thriving. I mean, what an incredible person, what an incredible, you know, trailblazer, really. She was the first one to stand at the sideline. She certainly hasn't been the last, and that's what it's all about. Phoebe, Scott, thank you so much for joining us on Her Huddle, and thanks to Katie Sowers as well for giving up her time. Remember, weekly podcasts, you can hear extended interviews on the Her Huddle podcast, but from all of us here for now, it's goodbye.
Sky Sports NFL. Feel it all.